the pink shrimp. And in some ways, this tiny creature is as important to the fisherfolk as once were the whales. The town of King's Lynn is a busy port and manufacturing centre. Nothing like the tourist's idea of a pretty fishing harbour. In the middle of the industrial sprawl is the fisher fleet, where boats of all shapes and sizes land their catches much as they have for centuries. There have been great changes in the fishing industry in the last 50 years, but much remains the same. The adventure of boats and the sea still attracts the young, and the process of learning begins very early. There's much for young fishermen to learn of the sea, of the creatures that live beneath its surface, of the weather and of the markets. For the fishermen of King's Lynn are affected by market forces as well as the forces of nature. Fishermen will forever be of a different world, and the fishermen of the North Norfolk coast, used to facing weather that sometimes comes straight from the Arctic Circle, have always been a world within a world. King's Lynn, standing at the head of the Wash, was always an important mercantile centre. Once it was one of the major ports in the North Sea, trading with Hamburg and other great continental cities, and alongside the trade has always been the fishing. In the 15th century, a friar of King's Lynn was referring to the shrimp fish, and 2 centuries later, another writer spoke of the shrimp as being for wanton women's taste, or for the weak stomach bought. Until recent years, the North End district of Lynn, near the Fleet, was where the fishermen and their families lived. Within living memory, it was still a tight, tough, tribal way of life.
They seemed to be a race apart. In fact, North End, of course, North End and Pilot Street and North Street were the main place where they lived, and they were very tough. The police in those early days would never come down North End, only in pairs. Then every Saturday night they used to get the beer into them and then fight like hell. And us kids used to bet on who was going to win because we knew who was going to fight, actually.
Central to the fishermen's social life then were the dockside pubs, the Retreat, the Victoria, the Bentinck, and the Fisherman's Arms. But the tribal bonds have now been loosened, and the modern fisherman is very different to his grandfather.
Today there's a mixture of 2 kinds of fishermen. One are the sons of old-time fishermen. The others, of course, are the newcomers who, think there's sort of a novelty and a bit of adventure in fishing.
Life for women has changed too since the outsiders began to infiltrate the North End.
I was born just 3 miles from North End, and I felt an outsider when I came here. I didn't know anybody, and everybody else seemed to know each other. And my mother-in-law told me that her mother-in-law used to meet the fishing boats up and buy 2 packs of shrimps and then go from house to house selling the shrimps.
It was unusual for a lot of fishermen to marry outsiders, as they always used to marry North End girls from one family into another. And then there were several of them they all done the same, went to South Lynn for girls. So that's how they got mixed then.
Whatever they do, they always consult the tide book before doing anything. And when we wanted to get married, we had to look at the tide book and see if they were small tides and see if we could fit it in that week. So after 7.5 years, well, we could do not here, neither here nor there.
Many kinds of fish and shellfish are caught by Lynn boats, but the most important single catch is the pink shrimp. It's big by shrimp standards, so many people call it a prawn.
Hey Gary, how goes it?
How do, Peter? How you keeping?
Well,
all right?
indeed. Long time no see.
Certainly is.
Seems to be plenty of activity. What's been going on?
Not a lot.
Peter Warren is a scientist and a familiar face on the Fisher fleet. He is the acknowledged expert on the pink shrimp.
We've had to convert to cockling now because there isn't a market price worth going for.
Yeah. What's the going rate for prawns?
Well,
The price of prawns is always a topic of conversation on the fleet, and the shrimps themselves are a subject of continuing fascination for Peter Warren.
It's a member of the crustacean family, the same group as lobsters, crabs, scampi and so on. They are, all of them, decapod crustaceans. Decapod meaning 10 legs, 10 limbs. They are, these are pandalid shrimp. This is Pandalus montagui. There is another species in this country, Pandalus borealis, and there are scores of pandalids throughout the rest of the world.
Why do they only occur in the wash?
Well, the answer is that they used to occur, and they still do occur in small numbers, fairly widely around this country. This is the sole remaining fishery. There used to be fisheries in Morecambe Bay, Thames Estuary, and you can still find shrimps in both those areas, just about enough to catch and make a living. But this is where the final fishery is. This is the last fishery for this species, the only fishery for this species in the world.
Frank Castleton was one of the last men to catch shrimp under sail. He still goes out, but now in his 70s, only to catch eels close inshore. Castleton is one of the traditional names of the North End fishermen, along with the booms, the balls, the guys and chases and many others besides. A Castleton from Lynn is known to have fished off Iceland in the 14th century, and Frank Castleton is a survivor of a much tougher age.
Oh, it was a very hard life. I mean, you never knew when you were going to come home again, you know, within 2 or 3 days, perhaps. And while you were there, it was, well, you had to have a lot of patience, and you relied solely on the elements and the tides. In fact, in those days, when a man was 45, he was considered rather too old to be a smack, a fishing smack. And of course, things are much different now. In fact, there's no comparison, really. More's a pity. I think that there would be a lot better for everyone concerned if engines, as far as this fishing is concerned, had never been invented, and the dole. Because I think the dole is the only reason why you've got fishermen at all today in shore fishing, because they lose so many days and the markets are so bad, most of their income is derived from the dole. And the cost of boats is pretty well prohibited as far as fishing is concerned. The only people that have real good craft are people that got other jobs ashore.
King's Lynn Saturday Market in summer, with the shrimp and Norfolk samphire season well underway.
Lovely Norfolk samphire, 30 pence a pound. Norfolk Sunfur, 30 pence a pound. Lovely stuff.
Many fishermen not only catch shrimps, but sell them too, and the stalls on the Saturday market are a long-standing tradition. In addition to being a salesman, David Howard is one of the more enterprising skippers in the port. His boat, the Jean Howard, is modern and powerful with some of the very latest navigation equipment.
What are they liking to try now? I've been picking brown here, haven't they? Well, I ain't picking any brown up with the arc here. I ain't picking any brown. I'll go have a look a bit further down the ridge.
On the way out into the wash, there's time to prepare for the arrival of shrimps on deck and to pass on skills to a new generation.
Okay, put her on north now, Buzz. Bit more starboard. And watch her head. And you can see her head come round, and she won't pay off too quick. Keep watching forward. Keep steering ahead. And just have a look at the stern. You can see the wash. See? If your wash is going all over the place, so are you.
Pink shrimps are found all over the wash, but the main fishing grounds are in an area 15 miles long and 2 miles wide. Another shrimp, the brown shrimp, is generally fished closer inshore. The wash itself is yet another world, a society with its own rules and those who enforce them. Protector is a fast launch belonging to the Eastern Sea Fisheries Committee. Part of skipper John Darlington's job is to protect fish and shellfish stocks by making sure the fishermen are using nets of the correct gauge. It's a task which, while important, doesn't make them welcome visitors. Protector has other tasks too, like helping marine scientists carry out research, and that sometimes brings them in contact with another part of wash society, the seals. There are hundreds of seals living in the wash. Unlike other fishermen, the Lynn men don't see them as a threat, nor are they sentimental about them.
In about 1920, we were offered 5 shillings, what they call bounty money, for the noses. Then the only seals that were killed after that were for, by the fishermen here, were for the oil, dressing oilskins, and stuffing sails. Used to mix it with linseed oil and red ochre to stuff the mainsails and things. To kill these seals, we only used a small club, in a lot of cases, just an ordinary cockle rake. If you hit them in the right spot, you kill them instantly. If you miss, you get a fountain of blood shooting out of the nostril into the air, about 3 feet high, in most cases. Then you usually can finish up some of the blood yourself.
The haul is always a tense moment on any fishing boat. The crew of the Jean Howard will want a good catch. Plenty of pink shrimps and not too many brown ones, which will need sorting out. They'll also be hoping that the market prices are good enough to pay the costs of the trip and give them a reasonable profit.
this ain't very good. There's too much fish and bits and pieces, crabs. But that was a broken haul, really. We come fast a few minutes ago and we had to have it up in a mud hill. But there's a few shrimps in here, but we could have done with a few more and less fish. I think that'd be better the next go. With a bit of luck anyway.
I'd better come aboard.
Good afternoon. On the plane.
What do you mean the plane? It's better over. That's looking nice, isn't it?
John boy? Yeah.
Right, we'd like to have a look at your net, Davey.
Yeah.
We've got all ready. Yeah. It's 20. 21. 22.
21.
20.
20.
Everything in order. And now the shrimps have to be processed. Minutes ago, these creatures were part of a well-ordered submarine world. Now, hundreds and thousands of bewildered crabs, small fish, and the shrimps are mechanically sorted. For when the shrimps leave the Jean Howard, they have to be ready to eat. As yet, they're not pink, merely a dull red color. Unwanted fish, crabs and smaller shrimps are tossed overboard to the delights of the following gulls. And now the cooking begins. After a few minutes in boiling brine, the shrimps emerge to be cooled in trays. By now, the odd brown shrimp has been removed, and the pink shrimp really are a warm, glowing pink.
These are the brown shrimp, this one, and these are the pink shrimp. As you can see, there's quite a piece of difference in them. These are more favoured on the continent and caught in shallower waters. These are the pink shrimp, which I prefer myself, which taste much more than the brown. But these are caught in deeper waters, shall we say over 10 fathoms, where these are catch mostly in less than 10 fathoms of water.
There's shrimp in the mouth.
Ain't too bad though. See we get on more of it.
Yeah. Well, thanks.
See you on then, mate.
Yeah, oh well.
Sure.
Go.
Not all shrimps are sold on local markets. Some are caught to order for fishmongers in other parts of the country. Others are sold to wholesalers in King's Lynn itself for freezing and marketing further afield. All fishermen worry about the erratic nature of their markets. Expensive boats are all too often left tied up for days because prices are too low. Albert Balls is a fisherman turned merchant.
It's sort of the question of supply and demand, and it's a constant battle from the point of view of the fisherman. To be a good fisherman, you've not only got to catch a lot of fish, you've got to catch a lot of fish when nobody else catches fish. As soon as the supply exceeds the demand, then obviously the price falls. And when the supply can't fulfill the demand, then you get a high price, but of course you aren't getting the quantity you catch to... It's a constant battle.
I think one of the fishermen's main problems is the fact that they work against each other instead of with each other. For instance, in the Wash we have the Lynn fishermen and the Boston fishermen who have never really worked together in the past, who could get together and form a fish producers organisation. They could work out better marketing and have more control over the landings and the marketing of the fish.
So everyone agrees that more sophisticated marketing is the key to the future for the fishermen. And so the pink shrimp now travels far indeed. In such an up and down world as fishing, Don Cole, international fish merchant, has an uncompromising air of success. From his base at Lowestoft, he now buys substantial parts of the King's Lynn catch and is a major influence on the lives of the Lynn fishermen.
Well, I've been buying pink shrimps here in King's Lynn for about 20 years now. And up until about 18 months ago, it was always a bit of a hit and miss affair. Fishermen didn't know what they were going to get, whether they were going to get a lot or a few. And when they came in, they didn't know whether they were going to be able to sell them. They always caught either too many or not enough. And 18 months ago, we took a firm in King's Lynn in our group, and we tried to upmarket the product. We installed some very expensive and sophisticated freezing equipment, and now we produce a very, very good article. From the fisherman's point of view, we contracted quite a few boats. We must buy well over 50% of the entire catch of the whole port, and they know where they are, they know where they stand, because they're on a sliding scale. They get so much money for the first so many pecks, and after that goes down. And in case of a glut, although they don't get so much money, they can sell them. We've explored markets in other countries. We're now selling into France, Belgium, and Germany, and I think the future is very bright.
Not all fishermen would be as optimistic. Costs are rising all the time. Some of the boats sailing from the fisher fleet are 50 years old or even more. Their hulls retain the grace of the days of sail, but they aren't as efficient as modern boats, and they won't last forever. When Frank Castleton decided he was too old for full-time fishing, he turned to boat building. He's now built 5 boats, with the 6th well underway.
So now this is the final one. When I finish this, I really shall pack it up. To build wooden ships commercially, I think now is becoming far too expensive. People can't, well, fishermen in particular can't afford to buy them. The timber comes in trees, and I ask for them to be sliced at certain thicknesses, and that's all. And I do the rest. And then I pick up occasionally the crotches where branch comes out of a tree for the knees and things like that, because they've got the natural bend and there's no strength in them if they haven't. But mostly for my part, I do it off the cuff sort of thing. I'm not a mathematician, but I've managed to get it somewhere right.
Whatever the problems of the fishermen, there's always the comforting thought that pink shrimps are more popular with the customers than ever before.
Well, we've been catching a few more.
Would you like the pink or the brown ones? Thank you, dear.
Tasty they may be. The unwrapping can be a bit difficult.
The way I use is to hold the head of the shrimp between thumb and second finger, to hold the tail with the other hand, to pull, to squeeze.
Now then, what do you do? Pull and twist. Oh! I stuck, I didn't twist.
I'm all fingers and thumbs this morning, but they come
But we don't have any. Oh, you can eat them with the skins on, because they're rather tender, some of them. The brown ones are just a little bit different to take off,
They are, look. They come off quite easily and lovely flavour. Look,
Gorgeous.
Made my day with that one shrimp.
Another one then. Lucy, you are funny.
No, I'm not. I'm ordinary. They are one. They are two.
These are fish merchants.
Well, they are. Are they?
I'm not a fish merchant, but these are.
And that comes off quite easily. We love them.
And she's drowned it too.
Well, I don't eat your breakfast. Yeah. And if they are even a little bit, I'll just scoop that out like that. What are you going to do with this? Give you this back? I've got oh, and litter back. Don't tempt me. Thank you very much. Very nice, I like it. These are Norfolk. See, they come up quite simple. I'd rather have these in some of the other shops. What's in the frozen?
Very tasty, they're lovely.
They're
really
frozen, not very nice at all. Who wants these? Don't make a mess. He can't be straight on the floor. No, doing this. What enough litter about? Really lovely. Thank you.
What do you think?
Very Norfolk. Very good.
The bonds which once separated the North Enders from the other people of King's Lynn have now been loosened. But the unique nature of the pink shrimp fishery and the shared problems the fishermen face when they come to sell their catch mean they will always be a special group of men, a world apart in the misty reaches of the Wash with the seals and the shellfish and the shrimps.
Okay.